That shit. Oh my goodness. So fucking over. Oh my! The Simon!
With the VCT America season coming up, the arguably just as important season to mention is Challengers, as one of the teams playing in Challengers this year will be in the partnership leagues next year. And although there are not many organizations left in North American Challengers, the teams that are coming together are looking pretty strong. First up, we have M80, who are the runners-up at the 2023 America's Ascension tournament. After winning both the mid-season face-off and the Split 2 playoffs in 2023, M80 were going into Ascension looking strong. They didn't start off too strong though, losing their first game to the Brazilian powerhouse, the Union. The team bounced back though, making it out of the group stage and running through the playoffs, eventually making it to a rematch against the Union, which they won dominantly. This win got them into the grand finals, where they played against the Guard, unfortunately losing to them and failing to make it to the Partners League. And with a team as strong as this, it was almost guaranteed that the team wouldn't be able to retain their full roster. And that's exactly what happened, as their IGL John QT went to partner team Sentinels, while their initiator EU moved to 100 Thieves, leaving Nismo, QoR and Xander looking for 2 players. And the players they brought in are bringing a lot of hope to fans of the M80 team, as they brought in BCJ and Esports veteran Nitro. Firstly, let's talk about BCJ. BCJ was a player who was at the top of the world at the end of 2022, being considered a top initiator player in the world on an exit team that was making waves at Champions 2022, beating the European FPX team that were fresh off of a Masters Copenhagen win and getting top 5 at their second international event. But going into 2023, BCJ seemed to be left out of all the top teams, ending up on an Evil Geniuses roster with a team that the community deemed underwhelming for a player of his caliber. Not only that, but he had swapped roles from his signature initiator agents that got him to where he was to controller. This was an extremely interesting move, but the team went on to play in lock-in regardless, where they picked up 1 win and lost in the second round to Talon. And when they got to the regular season of the Americas League, things just seemed to get weirder. The first 2 weeks went by with EG not winning a single map, and after possibly the worst tweet any org has made, BCJ was benched from the team and replaced by a rookie that not many people knew who went by the name of Demon 1. Now we all know how the rest of the story goes. EG turned their season around, qualifying to Tokyo and getting top 2, then going to Champs and winning, with Demon 1 being considered the best player in the world. And all this happened with BCJ on the bench, who was waiting to get his chance to play on the world stage again. And now he's ready to make it back, presumably on the role that he made his name on. And for the other player they brought in, we have their new IGL, Nitro, a player who is honestly an unknown quantity in Valorant at the moment. Nitro originally made his name in Valorant under 100 Thieves in 2020 and 2021, coming in as a veteran Counter-Strike player who could lead young players Asuna and Dicey to greatness. And that's exactly what the team did, winning First Strike and getting top 4 at Masters Berlin, but eventually Nitro made his way back to Counter-Strike to play under Team Liquid. And after 2 years away from the clearly better game, he's made his way back to Valorant to play under M80. The reason I say that he's generally an unknown quantity in Valorant is simply because we haven't seen him play in a professional Valorant match since Ascend was considered a good team. Realistically, he should be good enough to IGL the team, but I think it's reasonable to be unsure because they haven't played in any off-season events for anyone to see how good the team is looking. Other than that, the players they're playing with are fantastic, with QoR possibly still being the best duelist in NA Challengers, Nismo being bald, and Xander being consistently one of the best smokes players in NA. Overall, a very good team that has very high potential to win Ascension. The next team I wanted to talk about is of course Moist x Shopify. Now as the name implies, this team is a collaboration between Ludwig and Moist Critical's NA Challengers team, Moist Moguls, and Shopify Rebellion. Last season, Moist Moguls was a team that made major improvements towards the end of the Challengers season, resulting in them being the 3rd best NA Challengers team, barely failing to make it to the Ascension tournament. On the other side of the team, we have Shopify Rebellion, who went to 2023 NA Challengers as a team that was considered to be top 3, alongside M80 and the Guard, but never met those expectations. Shopify ended up going 1-4 in Split 1 and going 3-2 in Split 2, which qualified them to playoffs where they were eliminated in the very first round. Entirely contrasting stories for these teams, but the combination of them is looking scary, as they've taken Vic, Mata, and head coach Mag from Shopify Rebellion, while taking Flya, Thief, Brock, and assistant coach Odorous from Moist Moguls to form Moist x Shopify. Literally as I'm about to press publish on this video, Moist x Shopify announced that Thief is gone from the team. We have no idea who's going to be replacing him, but with players like Psalm, GMD, and Pancata on the market, it could be a considerable upgrade. Anyways, back to the video. Now, a few players on the team have swapped roles, as Mata has gone from playing mostly Initiator in some raids to now being on full-time Duelist, while Vic has moved over from playing Flex to full-time Sentinel. Unlike M80, we have some recent footage to look at from this team, as they played a lot during the very long break. Before being signed under Moistech Shopify, the team played under the name Lobster Fishers, while moving some players in and out during third-party tournaments such as Knights Monthlies and NSG tournaments. After securing the roster and being signed, the team played in the For Those Who Dare online qualifiers, where they won and qualified to the LAN tournament at the ASUS ROG headquarters. Afterwards, the team played in a show match against Sentinels, where they unexpectedly won 2-1. Their next event was the Sentinels Invitational, an event featuring 2 partner teams, Sentinels and G2, and 2 challengers teams, Moistech Shopify and Oxygen Esports. This event didn't go too well for MXS though, going out 0-3, losing 1-2 against Sentinels, 0-2 against G2, and 1-2 against Oxygen Esports. Right after this event, they flew straight from LA to Northern California to play in the For Those Who Dare LAN finals, where they got second place, taking out Torch 2-0 and losing 1-2 against Oxygen Esports. Their next event was back online, playing in the Sean Gares Showdown, where they went through the competition pretty easily and getting to the grand finals, where they lost 1-2 to Oxygen Esports. I'm starting to see a trend here. Their final event of the offseason was the Ludwig Invitational, another event featuring 2 partner teams and 2 challengers teams. This time the 2 partner teams being Cloud9 and 100 Thieves, and the other challenger team still being Oxygen. MXS started the event taking a 2-0 win over Cloud9, and then finally overcoming Oxygen Esports, winning 2-1. This win took them to the grand finals, where they met Oxygen yet again, and just like every other event, MXS lost 1-2. Overall, MXS are looking to be a very good team in NA Challengers, and it'll be interesting to see if they can overcome their kryptonite of Oxygen Esports and hopefully live up to expectations unlike Shopify Rebellion the past 2 years. And speaking of Oxygen Esports, they're the next team I wanted to talk about, as they're another one of those teams that look to be a contender for Ascension this season. In 2023, Oxygen was a team that were towards the middle of the pack in Challengers. They weren't necessarily a bad team though. If anything, the team was quite good, going 3-2 in both splits and getting top 4 at the mid-season face-off and playoffs. So they weren't bad, but they weren't necessarily a team that were considered for Ascension. But with one roster change, that all could be changing, as Dapper joined the team in place of Rustin, who moved to the assistant coach role. The rest of the team features young talent in Scuba, Verno, and Redux, along with their veteran IGL, Mitch. And of course, you can't talk about this team without talking about their head coach Bonkar, as the team never fails to talk about him either, consistently praising him in nearly every single interview. This team's first offseason event was the Knights Forge, a LAN tournament held in Pittsburgh, which the team won, taking down QoR in the finals. They then played in the Sentinels Invitational, getting second place after taking down G2, MXS, and G2 yet again, and losing to Sentinels in the grand finals. And just like Moistech Shopify, right after the Sen Invitational, they flew straight to NorCal to play in the For Those Who Dare LAN finals, which they won, taking down Turtle Troop and MXS both 2-1. Their next event was an online event, the Sean Gares Showdown, which they won, taking down QoR, OR Esports, and MXS in the grand finals. And for their final event of the offseason, the Ludwig Invitational, which Oxygen won, taking down Cloud9, 100 Thieves, and MXS in the grand finals. A nearly clean sweep in the offseason for this team, with Redux and Verno specifically showing just how good individually they are. Overall, this team has a good mix of young talent and seasoned veterans. And not only are the young players insanely good mechanically, but very disciplined, which makes this team very scary to see coming into the 2024 season. And now on to the next team I wanted to talk about, Turtle Troop. Turtle Troop is a free agent team that featured lots of top challengers talent, losing a few of their players to partner teams, such as Rossi who has gone to T1 and Governor who has gone to Talon. The team's 2023 season didn't go too well despite the talent on the roster, failing to qualify to the mid-season face-off or the Challengers playoffs, while going through 3 different iterations of the roster. The final iteration of the roster that participated in the offseason featured Moose, B-Dog, Dazzle, Weeded, and Adder with head coach Data. The team played in 3 different Knights monthly tournaments, winning 2 out of 3 of them and getting second place in August to MXS. Along with that, they also played in a few LANs, getting top 5 at the Knights Forge and playing in the For Those Who Dare LAN, where they lost in the semifinals to Oxygen Esports. And going into 2024, the team made big changes, losing their head coach Data, along with losing players Dazzle and Moose. But coming in to replace him are 100 Thieves' former IGL Stellar and TSM's former duelist player Corey to play alongside B-Dog, Weeded, and Adder. Some people might be a little skeptical about Stellar's ability to IGL after 100 Thieves' rough 2023 season, but don't forget that this is a player that brought a team of mostly inexperienced players to Champions 2022 while almost qualifying out of the hardest group at the event. At the moment, the team does not have a coach, but considering that the team doesn't need to play in the open qualifiers, they should have one by the time they start playing. There will most likely be role changes for the team, but I don't know exactly what players will be on what roles. Overall, the team looks to be pretty decent, and will hopefully make further strides this year as the best free agent team and hopefully getting signed. And finally, for some honorable mentions that can make runs through the open qualifiers, QoR and YFP. Starting with QoR, a team that features some lesser known challengers talent, with Nerve, Ziff, Zeldris, Snarly, and IGL T-Dog. The two most known players in the Valorant community on this roster are probably T-Dog, with his decently sized stream and coaching, and Ziff, who played on DSG last season alongside Nerve. They also have coaches from DSG, with head coach Ocean and assistant coach Slow. The team played pretty well in a few offseason events while moving the roster around, getting second place to Oxygen at the Night's Forge LAN, and winning the Spike Drop LAN that was held in Vegas. This team in my mind should qualify for challengers, as I see them as a team that can be towards the middle of the pack of the T2 teams. And for the other team I wanted to talk about, specifically for the players that are on the team, we have YFP. This team features some pretty well known challengers talent, with Penny from G2's challengers team, Jonah 6 and Physic from OR Esports, Moose who played with Shopify Rebellion during challengers, and Turtle Troop during the offseason, and Bones. Bones is a player that is generally unknown by the community, as he just turned old enough to play in challengers, but trust me, this kid is the future. Just after turning 16 years old, Bones won 4 online tournaments in a row alongside some of the MXS players, playing Duelist, Sentinel, and Initiator while putting up some pretty good stats. And most recently with YFP, he has been playing Smokes, which is most likely what he'll be playing when the qualifiers start. Honestly, if Bones can continue to improve, I can see him being similar to Zekken during his come-up, as a young player with insane mechanics and a wide agent pool. Now I don't only want to talk about Bones, as he is not the only player on the team. Another big player on the team is Penny, who is possibly moving back to Duelist after a rollercoaster of a year on G2. In his career, Penny has been a world-class duelist, taking his team version 1 to Valorant's first international LAN in Reykjavik. The other players on the team are also no pushovers, but there's honestly not much I have to say about them. They're consistently pretty good players, but if this team can collectively pop off this year, I can see them as a team that not only qualifies to challengers, but also could possibly make big upsets in the scene. And that's it for the teams I wanted to talk about. Even with challengers having less and less orgs involved, the teams at the top of challengers are still looking very good, with some up and coming talent also looking promising. Anyways, that's it for me.